Hello, I'm Täby Sep here again. Hope you remember me from Täby last week, and I just want to give you a quick recap of what we went through that last week in order for you to have a little bit more that you can maybe show your colleagues or students or whatever you could need the material for. Right, so quickly, this is the map I draw for you of the brain. We talked about the back part of the brain that I call the automatic processes, not only I, it's a scientific term. The automatic processes, it means the way we take in information, the way we see, we hear and we read. And this is something that happens automatically, which is a good thing, right? We take in information quite easily. But the problem is, when we don't think about it, at the same time, we can't remember it. So here's a little light in the front part of the brain, which means we manually, this is not scientific, it's my term, we manually need to think about what we see, hear and read in order to remember it. This happens naturally, of course, when we're curious, when we're motivated, when we really want to learn something, or we figure that this is a solution to a problem that we experience. But when this is not happening, when we don't feel motivated, when we keep thinking about other stuff, what's happening in the chat room, what's going on outside the room, what's happening in the computer, what will I have for lunch, what happened this morning, all these thoughts that go through our minds while we think we are taking in information because we are sitting there in the classroom or sitting there with a book in front of us or whatever it is. We think we see, hear and read, but what's actually happening is that our eyes and ears may be doing this in the back, but what we are actually doing is thinking about something else. Then we need to force our brain to think about what we see, hear and read in order to remember it. And a force could be to talk yourself. Formulate what it is that you just saw, heard or read. Write it. Don't just copy it. That's not writing. This is executive skills you do here, something you do yourself. So to write it, to talk about it, or even act out, sing, build, produce. Be a producer of stuff, content, information, instead of just consuming it. And when you're consuming it, break it up with talk and written text and your own acts. This way you will remember most things that you see, hear and read. The other point I made was about stress, and I draw for you this map of a brain which is 40,000 years old because it looks the same. It doesn't really matter that we're talking about a Stone Age person here. It's just it made more sense to react this way at that time, and it explains why our modern people today have the same reactions. All right, so here is the person who is stressed because he, let's call him a he, sees a snake and it creates a stress reaction. What happens then is that amygdala, here in the middle of the brain, is reacting really quickly with telling the body to produce noradrenaline here. And this happens really, really fast in order for your body to be really prepared to deal with a stress situation right away, before you even mentally are aware of what it is that frightens you. Alright, so after this happens, you have about less than a minute, I would say, before you have to get rid of this stress factor. In this case, a snake, so either you kill the snake or you run from it. If the stress isn't over in less than a minute, you will have cortisol as well being produced in your body. And this combination of noradrenaline and cortisol together will have an impact on the little area right beside amygdala, which is called hippocampus. This hippocampus you don't want to mess with, because hippocampus is the area in your brain where everything is connected. Everything that you learn and everything that you use as your knowledge is coming in and out of hippocampus as a link. It's then spread out in the network in the brain naturally, but it has some sort of connection to the hippocampus. So it's a very important part of the brain in this matter. All right, so when these two, after a minute of stress, are cooperating, they are closing the links you have to your hippocampus, which means that when you get stressed for more than a minute, you will be a little dumber. Which in this time and age, 40,000 years ago, it usually helped to be strong and work on instinct. Today, working on instinct means you cannot think, you cannot use the knowledge that you have, because that will take down time, but now maybe you need time. So what happens is you get a little dumber, and it's harder to work out the problem. And since the problem is very seldom a snake, but most of the time is a math test, or a problematic situation at home, or a discussion with your teacher, or fights with your friends, or results in school, or whatever it is, this creates an even larger problem if you feel that you're less able to think. But that is what happens when you get stressed. So what you need to do is two things. Either you have amygdala stop telling the brain that it's a stress situation by moving, talking, feeling, telling your body things in a way that makes it a lie, that you're not stressed.